Hey Tenno, this is Mako. I'm gonna recap my Oberon. So I added a exilus, and I added a forma, or two. I'm not really sure how many I added. Also, I'm gonna bring out the Paris Prime. This is a basic build, no forma required. Granted, if you can't get Argon Scope or bladed rounds, you could just sub in, another crit damage multiplier like, I can't remember offhand. I tend to use those because I have them, Tenno. So I also finally got my hands on a Final Harbinger. And really the only difference between the stances that I would say that's beneficial is the amount of hits per second on Final Harbinger and the distance it can cover really quickly. It's more like Tempo Royale or Crush and Ruin, as you can do multiple hits in 360 combo that cover areas really quickly. Cover distance. So you have a fast travel time between enemies. Now, the 11th Storm is probably the easiest of the stances to get. It drops from Lephantis when you first see it, and that is the boss that drops the Necros in the Derelict. Now, the 11th Storm is not very synergetic. It's very, I would say, annoying to get the stance points going, but it does a lot of CC. You can knock enemies away very easily and then do a maiming strike build with it. So they're knocked down, then you just do multiple spins into them and do a lot of red crits. Now, if you had the luck to get... What happened to my sword and shield? Why are they so tiny? Oh, the bugs are so fun in this game sometimes. They make it very entertaining. Back on the Final Harbinger. The Final Harbinger, I believe, drops from Maniac Bombards, which are not very common enemy to begin with, and the percentage drop rate is really low. But you do have CC capability with it and knock enemies away. It also is not really focused toward that, though, I would say. It's more focused in covering a lot of distance and doing a lot of hits per second. So with a crit build, it's very effective. What the heck was that? Come on, game, stop bugging out on Mako. Your right trigger combo is actually really effective for dealing with single enemies or a group of them if they're surrounding you, whereas your hold charge attack does a lot of distance cover. And that's mainly why I use it, not for its damage per second, but because I can travel really fast with it, and with Oberon being semi-slow to begin with, this makes covering, multiple enemies, multiple fronts, very effective for solo play. Now, the only downside I would say is this build is not really good for a maiming strike. Even though you can do a lot of hits per second with maiming strike, it's only going to do a low amount of red crits, even on a slash-based or a flesh-based enemy. It takes a lot longer to deal with a maiming strike wise than just, doing your trigger combo or your hold combo. So I would suggest not being a maiming strike build on that front, but if you really want to do it, you can. I usually just remove maiming strike and put like the extra toxic plus status chance on in its place. Now the Paris Prime really rewards accuracy and patience. If you are a stealthy hunter, Tenno, it'd be just fine for you. It does a lot of damage, very high puncture, and it can do a lot of quick repetitive hits too. It's just not as effective in terms of damage versus like the Rocket Senros or the Dread. But that can be player preference. So what I'll usually do is I'll whittle down my enemy's HP like that, and then do a charge attack just to finish them. And see, like a health orb. I have this thought with health orbs, but that has to do with Cephalon Samaris' augment, which every time you pick a health orb, you get 450 armor, and you get 3 stacks of 450 armor. So if you drop health orbs, that's a lot of armor, making you very tanky and solo friendly. Also, the static ore has a nice thing. If you do mid-air attacks with it, it actually shoots faster. Even pressurized mag to accelerate my fire rate, it wasn't very well, but then I jumped in the air and did it. It was like, oh wow, that worked pretty well. Anyway, let's remove this. So other bows are available, but Ruckus Senros is pretty fun, or the Tonkor, or whatever you want to use, Tenno. I tend to use a bow because his pack featured a bow, so I thought I'd stick with the theme. So another thought is you could forma to try and get this Fury in. If that doesn't really work for you though, I would just say, you know, rip it out, slap in a status and damage buffer. So let's now demo the Oberon build with the rework, or the extra mod. I mean, really the only benefit of doing formas is just to strengthen your build just a little more. And I mean, combining his first, second, and fourth together, he's very effective at CCing and knocking enemies down. So my whole thing is I'll use Naramon on really high enemies. Naramon's Shadow Step makes you invisible for every crit you do. It also increases your crit chance by 20%. It also opens enemies to finishers. You can also disarm them. So it makes it really handy to use with him. Now granted, you can use it with other warframes too. I'm just suggesting if you're having trouble staying alive with Oberon to do that, or to get the Supple and Samaris mod on, which buffs your armor significantly. And due to the fact you drop health orbs like crazy, makes it pretty effective with Oberon. So let's test this out with a bunch of enemies. Do not jump away from targets, as you will not cast in the field. It takes from your last cast point. So like if you jump into the middle of a group and activate it, and then jump away, it'll then ground slam all these enemies together, like this. So like cast, jump away while that's active. Usually what I'll do is I'll cast the fourth with all of grounds on, and then have the Sanctified Ground thrown under him, just so I can have a little damage per second. Also, while standing on the Sanctified Ground, you gain extra armor on both Hollow Ground and your second. So it makes it pretty effective at just buffing up your armor and survivability, even if you're not using Naramon. Naramon, as you see, can make it pretty useful while being invisible. You are not attacked, you can just keep shredding enemies. It makes it pretty easy to just tear through them. Now granted, you have to be using a crit weapon or getting critical damage to activate the Shadow Step method. But Shadow Step is very beneficial that while you're invisible, nullification type powers do not work on it, as it's a status effect, not a actual power effect. So you can keep it going as much as you want. But the main thing I want to say with Oberon to focus on is your CC and quick cast. The regeneration is not really that beneficial. What I'll usually do is quick cast it, you know, in succession while I'm invisible to stay alive and to get my health back. But the travel of time, and it doesn't even give, you know, shield, just health, makes it pretty ineffective when compared to, say, Trinity, who gives shields and energy, and can even give over shields with their EV. So, the problem with Oberon is he's trying to be too much at once. He's trying to be like a Nyx, a Vob, and a Trinity, but he really doesn't pull off any of those powers very well. But granted, he is very easy to get Warframe. So, just keep that in mind, Tenno. If you combine the powers together, though, it can make it pretty effective. So, little tactics, little bit of strategy can go a long way. So, I hope this video helps, and I hope you learned some more little tips and tricks with Oberon that make it easier for you to play as him. If you don't like playing with Oberon, well, you don't really have to. And, in all honesty, I do understand. He may be good with dealing with crowd control, but in all honesty, he's very lackluster in synergy, and I really hope he's one of those warframes that are going to get a rework soon, because they just seem to keep making band-aid augments for him. He is a very good CC warframe, Tenno. See you later.